On today's episode, we are going to talk about Yuki Tsunoda's debut for Red Bull. We will talk about Max Verstappen's dominating drive. And we will talk about crazy pit exit for Lando and Max. Welcome to Pit Stop with Don and James. I'm Don.
I'm James.
Thanks for joining us today. We have a Japanese Grand Prix to review. We got to talk about several things, including Yuki Tsunoda's first drive with Red Bull and Liam Lawson's comeback on Racing Bulls, and big drive from Max Verstappen. Just a few preview things, but first, how you doing, James?
Yeah, man, not too bad. Feeling a little under the weather, but trying to rally and keep the weekend going as long as I can.
A little under the weather, huh? You're gonna bust out the sexy voice on us, huh?
I got that deep crackle going on right now.
Nice. So we got to talk about one thing before we get into Formula One. I'm sporting my Manchester City jersey today. This is their they have this burgundy kit that's really cool that I got for Christmas, and the Manchester Derby is going on as we speak. I'm a Manchester City fan. James, you're a Manchester United fan. Are you going to watch the game later?
I don't know. I guess it depends if Man United win or not.
You're going to check the score first and then decide to
Yeah,
watch?
exactly.
Well, I can say this. United has been pretty much garbage this year, but I think they did beat City last matchup. So,
well, they're at halftime right now, and the score's still 0-0. So.
Okay, well, yeah, I paused it, so if you get any more updates, don't tell me, because it was 0-0 at 35 minutes, and then we came and started recording this. So
well, now you can skip forward to halftime.
Yeah, I'll skip right on to half. 0-0. It's always a little bit I don't know, boring, I guess, but it's also with this matchup, it means there's probably some good back and forth going on, and nobody's just able to complete the score. So
anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of city pride going on this weekend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man, we got a Grand Prix to recap. It was in the middle of the night. So I stayed up to watch it. I think you had to kind of regroup after falling asleep during it. I think.
Yeah, I made it to lap 22, and even then I was already nodding out. I think I missed the previous 5 laps, so I woke up early this morning and finished it off.
Yeah. Yeah, to break it up. It wasn't the most captivating race. I'm just going to go ahead and start off with that. It wasn't like there was a lot going on. We had no retirements, right?
So no retirements, which is good. No lawn catching fire during the race, which is a big plus.
Yeah, I think it rained kind of overnight after qualifying, and so that probably helped prevent any grass fires. There were several grass fires throughout the course of the weekend that kept red flagging the race, but I guess that was good that there was a little bit of rain to prevent all that. But it didn't. The rain didn't create a lot of jeopardy for the drivers either, so it was pretty well dried out and on the track. But it was as far as boring races go, I would say there was minimal overtaking. I don't know what you thought, but that seemed like minimal overtaking, at least up at the top of the grid.
Yeah, I think everybody in the top 10 finished where they started. Is that right? Hamilton started 7th and finished 8th. So I guess Hadjar moved up a position from 8th to 7th. But other than that, I think everybody else was. Yeah, that was the only overtake in the top 10, and I don't even think it was a real overtake. I think it was just due to pit stops. So the race was definitely a slow burning race. I think the pit stops could have shaken some things up, but especially with the McLarens and Max Verstappen at the top, I think they played it out wrong, quite frankly. But yeah, it was a slow burning race.
Yep. Yeah, uh, I agree. There wasn't, as far as the first three races go, it was probably the most boring. Having said that, there's some stuff to talk about for sure. Um, um, Before we get into the racing, though, I wanted to bring up a couple things. Um, I really liked the Honda livery for the Red Bulls. I don't know what you thought, but I thought that thing looked good. I thought it looked better than their usual livery with the white and the red and all that. I was digging it. What about you?
Well, when I'm not wearing my glasses, it's really hard to distinguish them from the Racing Bulls
Yeah,
livery. But yeah, no, it definitely looks sharp. I really like Max Verstappen's helmet with the lion on it and the red and the white. It was really sharp looking.
yeah,
Yuki Tsunoda, of course, hometown hero, playing it up to the crowd. You know, I wish he would have had a better weekend.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, the liveries were pretty freaking sharp looking. I really
Well,
enjoyed them. Even the hats, the limited edition hats that they had for the Grand Prix were. I got to admit, I was really tempted to drop in the $40 or whatever it is on the hat.
$40 for an F1 hat's not a bad deal, to be honest. Um, what about the Haas livery? Did you like that one? I wasn't a big fan of that one. They came out with
Uh,
it. It
I,
was kind of a pink.
is that what that
Uh,
was?
yeah. We might have to put a link to it in the show notes or something because it was like a it was like a pink and I don't know. I didn't particularly love the lettering for the Haas name. It wasn't. I
I
mean, it
just don't
kind of
think I
looked.
looked that close at it, quite
Yeah, you have to go
honestly.
back and check it out. It was kind of like cartoony, or maybe like almost. It almost reminded me of like graffiti art. Um,
Okay.
the Haas livery, but it had, yeah, it was like pink. I wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't digging it, but I really did like the Red Bull one.
Yeah, very, very sharp.
So anyway, yeah. So that was kind of the non-racing stuff. But yeah, to get back into it, I think we got to start with Sonoda, right? So Sonoda going to Red Bull, and being a home race, and I thought it was underwhelming, to be honest. He looked good going through the practice sessions, but then in
Super
quali,
quick in the practice.
yeah, I don't know what happened in quali. I'm not sure what went on there, but
And it seems like
in
he
the
got the most camera time too. Like whenever he was on track, like that's all the cameras were following.
yeah, well, they made him driver of the day too. That had to be because it was the home race, right? Like he
Oh
didn't do
yeah,
anything that special in the race. Um, he so in when I was watching the practice sessions, the commentators were speculating that they had a higher engine mode for him, just I guess to maybe boost his confidence or something like that. So I don't know what to make of that. Um, I'd like to think he was they weren't doing something special for him, but he was looking strong. And then in quali, it was I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten me about this. So in quali, right, it was Q2 that he went out and he was 15th, so like dead last in Q2. And um, when he finished his hot lap, I swear there was enough time if he wanted to just keep pushing, he could have done another lap. But they rarely do that. Why do they not do that? Why wouldn't they, knowing that he was not didn't have a particularly great time, why wouldn't they let him just go out there and do one more since there was enough time on the clock to do one more?
I did think of that as well when Sonoda crossed. I was like, well, he probably won't go as slow as they really want him to, but if he kind of put a little oomph into it, he probably could have crossed the start finish line with maybe a few seconds to spare and got one more lap in.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, he even because he had more, he had maybe 10 minutes or 10 seconds. He could have gone slow for one lap and then still got out. But yeah, they just
Yeah,
they
because
just
he
brought him
crossed
back,
the line with what, like 2 minutes to spare um,
something like that. Yeah,
before the timer ran out. I think and the fastest lap times were under 1:30. So if
yeah,
he could have just slowed down 30 seconds, I think he would have got another lap. And it's a shame that he didn't because Lawson outqualified him, which is
yeah.
huge, which I'm sure everybody was like shooting themselves in the foot over.
Well, yeah, but when we saw in the race, Lawson. Lawson didn't finish ahead of him, right? I think Lawson finished.
No, Yuki made pretty quick work of him. Got past him on the first lap in Spoon Corner. Lawson had a bit of a little understeer, little squabble right there, and Yuki just slid right underneath him, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't think it was like a loss for Yuki. I thought he showed some promise in the practice sessions, like better uh, control over that car, enough control over the car to to warrant giving him that shot. So I think maybe we'll see him improve. Um, hopefully it doesn't take him too long because they seem pretty impatient over there at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Um, so what else do we have to talk about? In do you want to talk anything about quali or practice, or you just want to jump right to the Grand Prix?
Um, the only thing of note would be Sonoda, of course, getting um, below Lawson. But I think also it's important to note that Carlos Sainz got a 3 grid penalty, so dropped in down from 12th down to 15th, below the Racing Bulls. But that being said, Sainz moved up 1 position, finished in 14th. Yuki Tsunoda, I think he was the biggest mover. He started 14th and finished 12th. So good race for him. But I think it's also important to note all the rookies that were in the top 10, because Ollie Behrman eked in to qualify P10, and then Isaac Hadjar, where did he start? 7th is where I think I said he started. Let me check. Yep, started 7th, right behind Kimi Antonelli. So strong performances from them, outperforming their teammates, even especially Behrman by a huge margin.
Oh yeah, uh, Ocon was nowhere close to the top 10. I mean, where did he finish?
He started
16th,
18th.
17th. Yeah, he was no. Yeah, there was 3 rookies in the top 10. 3 rookies scored points. That was pretty impressive. Hadjar to me was the driver of the weekend, I guess. I mean, he as a rookie in a not so great car, and for him to qualify where he did, and he was having some kind of trouble in the cockpit. I don't never really heard the end of that. But during quali, he was saying something was making him uncomfortable, and they even had him get out of the car. They were adjusting his seatbelt, and like he was wincing while they were doing it. I don't know what was going on there, but he went out and still uh, fought through whatever discomfort he had there, and put the car P7 in quali. I was impressed. I'm liking Hadjar this year.
Yeah, and I think Behrman is for me is the one to really watch. He's had some great showings.
Yeah.
Way to go, Ollie Behrman.
Well, and Antonelli, obviously, I mean, he's been putting maximum effort out there. He took fastest lap, if I'm not mistaken.
And youngest driver to ever lead a race.
Yeah, and I think youngest driver to take fastest lap too. So I mean, those 3 guys making the most of it. Doohan, not as much, but those 3 guys are doing well.
Man, I'm
The
glad he's okay though.
Yeah, that was a huge crash. They said 50G into the wall there at turn 1.
Dang. Yeah, that's nothing to that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a
Yeah.
pretty freaking heavy impact.
He looked woozy getting out of the car. You know, he stayed in the car till the medical car showed up, and and uh and then when they got him out, he didn't look like he was walking great. And I felt bad for the guy, but he seemed to shake it off pretty well and turned up for the race. And obviously everybody finished, so that's something that they were able to
Uh
build the car back up, and he
yeah,
was
I
able to
mean he
go.
started 19th, but he finished in 15th, so made some moves.
Yeah, yeah. Others in the race, other things to note. So we got to talk a little bit about Williams. I mean, Albon strung together a decent performance, scored some points, and then and I'm starting to get worried about Sainz. What do you think? It seems like he's still not coming to terms with the car. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for as good as the driver is, I think he should already be performing better. You see Hamilton, who has switched teams. He's a top tier driver, and he seems to be coming to grips with his car already. And I would expect Sainz would be doing the same thing. There was one point where he did have the fastest lap before Kimi Antonelli took it away. So I mean, there is pace. I think he's still a great driver. I think he's still a great contender. I just don't know what it is. Maybe it's his confidence that is just shaken up. Maybe he's still trying to find you know, I don't know, what do you call them? The peculiarities of the Williams. But he really needs to start figuring it out because, and in all fairness, he did have a grid penalty. So, I mean, if he didn't, and if he did had actually started in 12th, I think it would have been a bit of a difference. Who knows?
One of my bold predictions last week was that both Williams would score points, and from P12 I thought he had a chance, and then we got the grid penalty. I was like, ah, darn it! There goes my bold prediction.
Well, I predicted Williams or just Albon would be top 10, so I'm still in the green.
You got it. You got yours. So when Sainz got that fastest lap, was he one of? There was a couple guys that went on to the softs.
He was on the softs, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that I think helped him get that fastest lap. But he's just he's struggling somehow, and I'm hoping he figures it out because it could be really good for Williams, but also good for him. And I don't know. I'm getting nervous about him. Did you hear Albon like getting completely ticked off at his
Man.
team?
From what I understand, it had to do with his pit stops, right? Because he couldn't understand, I guess, why they pitted so early. I guess he felt he still had some more in the tires and really wanted to keep pushing. We saw Kimi Antonelli stay out there for laps and laps after everybody else had pitted. So, I mean, there was still pace to be found. And then, he probably would have had some clear track had he not pit, right? So, obviously frustrated.
Yeah, he could not make sense of their call, and he let him know it, man.
Yeah, and I get they were trying to cut off Ollie Behrman, but, I think he was more focused on getting Hadjar more than Behrman coming up. Because, let's see here. Yeah, Behrman was still finished 14 seconds behind him. So, even if Behrman had got by, I think Albon would have done quick work of him and been on the hunt. I think they should have gambled more and gone after Hadjar. Because Hadjar was only, 4 seconds ahead? 3 seconds ahead. So, it's a tough call.
I think Albon was probably right, and makes sense that he was frustrated at the strategy call. Okay, so speaking of strategies, right? The McLarens, there was 2 strategy calls I think that we probably should talk about. The first one is the pit strategy. They pitted right when Max pitted. It almost paid off. Almost. They released Lando. He was half a car length behind. He was side by side, but half a car length behind Max coming out of the pit lane. So we should talk about that incident. But then the other thing is, should they have let Oscar by and let him try to attack Max? So those 2 strategy calls for McLaren. What do you think?
I would say, yeah, it was a tough call. They pitted Piastri kind of early, right? Yeah. Trying to do the undercut. I think they should have given Norris the call that's saying, hey, we're going to pit this lap, but if Max comes in, stay out, and we'll try and do the overcut. That way you're playing the team strategy of, okay, now Max has to worry about the undercut and the overcut. And I think that could have made a bit of a difference in the long run, especially down towards the last few laps, because they were all running pretty much the same pace for the last 10 laps or so, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think right at about lap 11, lap 10, with 10 laps to go, that they should have made the switch, because there was one point where Piastri was 0.3, 0.2 behind Norris coming across the line, and that's when they should have done it. They should have just let him go and try to chase him down maybe with the caveat that if he couldn't, that they would switch back and give Norris P2 and Oscar P3. I think that would have been the gentlemanly thing to do. We've seen other teams do it in the past. Zach Brown is very, very much about, let him race. So maybe that took precedence over everything. But, and it's still early, maybe things will change as the season goes on and points become, tighter. We'll see how things go.
Yeah, I thought that they should have given Lando maybe a couple laps. Said if you don't get in DRS within these 2 laps, Oscar's going by you. And then because Lando just couldn't crack the 1 second barrier. He got down to just over a second, and then he couldn't attack any further. So I felt like Oscar had the pace. He was cutting into Lando much more than Lando was cutting in to Max, and so their big hope, was to put pressure on Max, and they just couldn't get there. So if Oscar could have been up there giving it a shot, if he could have gotten DRS, maybe Max makes a mistake. I mean, that I know that's rare. That's asking a lot to try to make Max make a mistake, but he could have done something. He could have touched some gravel, touched some grass. He did it in Australia. I don't see why he couldn't. It couldn't happen again, and then that really opens the door for both them to steal, the 1-2. So, I thought it was a mistake to not make the controversial call to let Oscar by because he just seemed to have a little more pace in his car.
Yeah, and then what do you think about the call about the pit stop? Lando and Max coming in, but obviously they came out at the same time. McLaren having a significantly quicker stop than Red
Yeah.
Bull, and then Max Verstappen putting Lando Norris onto the grass. What do you feel about that? I think it was a little. I think he could have given him room, but Max isn't one to
Yeah.
do so.
Okay, so a couple thoughts. One being that it really seemed he wasn't going to yield any ground, which is a very Max thing to do. Lando admitted that after the race. He was like, I wouldn't expect Max to give me any more space. Now, having said that, do you think in IndyCar the McLaren would have just stepped on the gas and just run half in the grass to try to get ahead of him, pass him on the grass in the pit lane? I don't know if that's legal, but it seems like they weren't. There wouldn't be any problem with it. He's half on the track.
The interesting thing I noticed is if you go back and watch the video, uh, in the pit lane, there's the pit lane, then there's kind of like 2 white lines, and then the lane where people driving in the pit are supposed to stay. But if you watch Max, he's riding the white line, so he's like half in the no man land and then half in the actual lane. So he could have given room. I think he was entitled to take all the space, but the pit lane closes off pretty quick, right? Because it has to jump out with that sharp left, and you can't cross the outer white line. So I don't know. I think I'm sure Lando put his foot down and just kind of hoped for the best, and it obviously got a little bit away from him.
Well, he was panicking because the grass is so crazy. It was bumping around it, and so you could tell he let off to get back onto the track. But I would have been impressed if he would have passed him half in the grass. That would have been sick.
Yeah,
Going.
it would it would have been
I would have
crazy.
been like, yes, this guy, because that to me, that's like that killer mindset that like Max has, and he employed his killer mindset there to not let Lando on the track. And if Lando said screw it, I'm gonna pass him in the grass, because that's like an IndyCar move, to pass somebody on the grass. And it doesn't always play out. It would have been a big risk, but it seemed like it was straight enough right there that if he would have just committed to it and just said screw it, I'm going for this, maybe he would have made it. And that would have been awesome, and
In
it
all
would have paid
fairness, the
off.
grass was wet, so
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying that it would have been the best call, but I think it would have been worth a shot because they gambled it all right there, and that settled the race. After that pit stop, they were both going to the end, and Lando could never gain back. That was as close as he got, is right there in the pit lane. The rest of the race, he was never really in striking distance. So I don't know. Maybe this is one of my wishful thinking uh, ideas, but I do think it was. that was his shot right there if he was going to
It
do
would have
it.
made one heck of a highlight for sure had he actually completed it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that
Be
was
the
the
pass
most
of the year.
exciting part of the race, right? Is that pit stop and seeing that happen, and it was high drama. And so, you know, I would say that was probably the big highlight, even though it turned out with Max staying in the lead. We got to give Max credit. I mean, he set the he set the lap record on the uh, qualifying lap that he did to get pole. He stole pole by, I think it was less than 200ths of a second. Um, he drove amazing. He didn't make mistakes. He brought home a bunch of points for Red Bull, and they didn't. I mean, the jury is still out on that on the car, right? Like everything I keep hearing from the commentators is that the car isn't great. It's not the fastest car. That McLaren has the fastest car, and yet here he is, stinking wins the race, and and I mean it was on skill. I mean the dude he pushed when he had to push and kept him out of DRS. I mean,
He's definitely become one of the best drivers on the grid for sure. Um, in like slightly other news, did you hear that Carlos Sainz got fined 20,000 euros
no.
for he was having sort of some stomach issues and he didn't make the start of the national anthems, like the starting grid procedures. And
Okay.
so he has been fined 20,000 euros for missing the start. But he went to a doctor and got checked out, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, like he's sick, he's not feeling well." And even with the doctor note, still got fined.
That's an expensive doctor visit right there.
That's such a bummer. He's not having a good weekend at all.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You hate to see that, and maybe that played into his performance. You know, if he wasn't feeling good.
Yeah, could do.
Um, can we say Stroll sucks?
Man, he was having a bad weekend.
Yeah.
He was for a race that felt flat out, right? Like there was no yellow flags. Everybody was pretty much pushing the whole race. But he was the only car that got lapped. And usually when, you see races that are flat out, more probably close to half the fielder are being lapped. So I think the cars are getting closer together. At least that's what it seems like. But Stroll's just having a rough weekend. But Alonso finally finished the race
Yeah.
for the first one of the season. And
Yeah.
not a bad race either, right? Because he qualified 12th and finished 11th. So just outside the top 10
Yep. Yeah.
by
My
only 3 seconds. So
one of my bold predictions at the beginning of the year, I think, needs to be officially buried in the ground, and that was that Aston's going to compete for P3. They really have not done well, and Stroll had a decent week previously in Shanghai, but then in Japan he was nowhere to be found, and it just kept getting worse. I think they had to pit him early, and I think he ended up on a two stop, and he
yeah,
was he was just he was just back there. And yeah, you're right, Alonso. I would like Alonso to step up. P11, of course, is not great, but it was better than not finishing the race for sure. Which I don't know, it's just surprising. Like I find him to be one of the great talents in the sport, and I'm hoping that they get things going in the right direction because a few years ago they had a good car. He was taking a lot of podiums. Alonso was, and so I don't know how many steps backwards they've taken since not last year, but the year before when Alonso was, you know, scoring a lot of points for Aston. But something's got to get figured out there.
my bet is now that they have Adrian Newey, they're just putting all their money on the 2026 for the regulation changes, and that's
Yeah,
what they've got Newey and his team working towards. And they're probably having like, they're probably splitting in half, right? Adrian Newey and his like top guys are working on 2026, and then I don't want to say their B team because that sounds kind of rough, but they probably have half their department working on minor upgrades for this year.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm hoping 2026 they'll make that comeback. Maybe you can make that prediction for next year
Yeah.
that they'll be fighting for P3.
I jumped the gun, but that's okay. They're bold predictions. If they weren't wildly optimistic, then wouldn't be bold at all.
That's right. We'll get them wrong.
Okay, so the Ferraris, shall we talk about them? I thought a good drive by Leclerc. Um, the drive by Hamilton, decent, but again, I thought it was a middling effort. I'm starting to wonder if the Ferrari is a middling car and not the contender for the championship, at least right now. What do you think?
Yeah, that's sort of a tough one because when it comes to the qualifying pace race, Verstappen had a 1:26.98 setting the fastest, fastest breaking the lap record, which is phenomenal. And then everybody that was in the top 13, they were all within 1 second of each other for the qualifying pace race, which is phenomenal. But then you look at the race pace, and Ferrari just do not have it. They finished more than 15 seconds back on the top three cars. And I think they had pretty good strategy when it came to the pit stops, right? They were kind of there with everybody else. They were running the same tire compounds that everybody else was running. Everybody did the medium to hards, at least on the top runners. And they couldn't do it. They just could not do it.
Yeah, I'm starting to think. So I came into the season on their strength of the end of last season, thinking that they'd be competing for the top. Uh, it doesn't look that way right now. I'm looking like seems to me like they're gonna be lucky to be battling for P3 um, in the constructors, and I'm not really seeing a lot of hope that they're gonna that they don't seem like they're either car or driver is a podium car. So I mean they might snag some here or there, but man, I was really hoping for more. And this is not to say like I don't get too bogged down 3 races in, to the season. We saw what happened last year. The first 9-10 races, it was all Red Bull again, and then the script got flipped. So that could be the same this year. We could see them find something and jump up because they're not in a bad spot, but they're not. They just seem like a middling car to me. So, and I would like to see I would like to see Lewis. I'd like to see Lewis doing better than he's doing. I think we see him making progress and maybe handling the car fairly well, but come on, I want him to be fighting. I want the storyline where he's in contention for that 8th championship, and right now actually the Mercedes looks like a stronger car, and I wonder sometimes if he's going to find himself throughout the course of this year kicking himself for bailing on them a season too soon or something.
Yeah, it's hard to say. The constructors are sort of shaping up, right? McLaren is running away with it. They're already at 111 points, and then you have Mercedes and Red Bull at 75 and 61, and then you have Ferrari all the way down at 35. So not a real strong showing so far this year. But like you said, there's a lot of points to be found the rest of the season.
That double disqualification, yeah, that's gonna kill them. That's gonna kill them. They had it was a decent haul of points that got taken away. So that they're gonna have to be pushing, 1-2s or 2 cars on the podium to make up for that one race. Because yeah, it's that was a big point haul that nailed them. And Mercedes, to their credit, they're finding points. I was really questioning the decision by Toto to put Antonelli in the car because I was admittedly I'm going to steal some of this from Drive to Survive, but he made a big deal about the hunt for a new driver to replace Lewis, and putting a rookie in there was a risky move, but it seems to not be a bad choice. He's scoring points, and they're not bad points either. He's not just picking up a point at P10. You know, he's putting the car up there. George has performed pretty well, and so yeah, I think they're taking care of business on the constructor side. But they still have a ways to go to put cars on the podium routinely. I think they're um, so yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my take on Mercedes, and I wonder if any of that's playing in Lewis's head, seeing them Mercedes outperform Ferrari now 3 races in a row. So
Yeah, he's got a good mentality. Like you said, they had the double disqualification last time, so everything is to play for. In all fair to Leclerc, he did come fourth, so that's a pretty good points haul for Ferrari. So, I think there's a good chance they may move up to third, especially if Red Bull can't sort out their second driver situation. I really want Yuki to succeed. I really wanted Liam to succeed, but now that Yuki's in there, I want him to do well. He had the pace. It just didn't come together in qualifying or the race. So I'm really hoping that the next round he will, have a better showing.
yeah, yeah. I think Yuki's gonna do it. This is my guess, is that he's gonna step up. I think he's gonna do better than Liam did. I think he showed a little bit better mastery than Liam did. So let's see if he can score some points.
Yeah, fair enough. The next race they're at is Bahrain.
Yep.
Right, which is where they did their testing. So at least they'll have some familiarity and some sort of data to go on already when it comes to that track. So
Yep.
hopefully we can see a better showing. I really want things to keep getting shaken up.
Right.
We if I'm not mistaken, we've had 3 races and 3 different winners. Am I right in
Yep.
saying that? So I hope we can get a 4th different winner. Maybe we'll see Mercedes or Leclerc at the top. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Lando, Oscar, and Max have all won, and that's it's not all that surprising. I mean, I gotta say too, that it's not just because I'm wearing his hat. Oscar is an impressive driver. This guy, I feel like he seems smart. He seems calm, and he is fast. Like I'm like an Oscar Piastri, and as much as I like Lando and thought Lando was great, like Oscar has something. Um, I don't know if this is good, but it's like a coldness. he's just he's just like, he seems like he's out there to win, and I think he's got it, and he I feel like he's pretty consistent as well for a young driver. He's not that young anymore. What is this, his 3rd season?
I believe so, yeah.
So yeah, I'm like an Oscar Piastri, and I feel like he's going to be hauling in the points, if not challenging Lando at times to for wins. He's even with him for race wins so far this season, and I think he outperformed him in the sprint race too. So I'm meaning Oscar outperformed Lando. So yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. And then last time you said we were going to do food
Oh
for
yeah,
the Japanese Grand Prix, and we
yeah.
both ended up having sushi this weekend
That's
in
right.
honor of the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, we stole our Guitar Center employees' idea, and I thought it was fun. I took my son Kyle, and we went and got sushi, and he was all proud that he ate the sushi. I think raw fish thing, he was excited that he did it, and he actually enjoyed it. Um,
Nice.
so we had one. It was called the Rock and Roll, and I can't remember what all different kinds of fish that it had. It was like salmon and um, some yellowtail or something like that in it, and it was pretty good. It wasn't the best sushi that I've had, but it was pretty good. But I got some spicy miso ramen as well, and that was really tasty. It had some pork loin in it, and we got some pot stickers. So we did a full 3-courser there, and it was good. What did you get? I think you
Yeah,
sent
we
me a
got a
picture.
Philly roll, we got a rainbow roll, and we got what's called a geisha roll, um, which is just like salmon with like eel sauce on it and some other stuff. Super good. You know, we have the sushi place out here in Phoenix that we absolutely love.
Nice.
Which, you know, when people have a sushi spot, they always think their spot is the best spot when it comes
Yeah,
to sushi spots. So I'm gonna die on that hill that ours is the best one around us.
nice. The place that I went was the first time I had been, and it wasn't the best place that I've been for sushi. The ramen was really good, but there was a different sushi place in Salt Lake City that I went to one time with a friend of mine who was the one who knows where to go. So I can't remember the name of the place now. Fat Fish maybe, or something like that, and it was amazing. And that to this day is the best sushi that I've had. And I'm not any kind of a connoisseur. I don't know my sushi that well, but it that was the place that I thought had the best sushi. But this ramen was really good. The pot stickers were amazing, and the sushi was decent. It was pretty good, and mostly it was just fun to do the little tradition of picking some local food. Now I don't know of any Bahrainian places to go get food, so I don't know how we're gonna make that work.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna have to do a little research on that one and get back to you on what I find. Maybe just some Middle Eastern food, like we'll do some baklava or something like that. That's
Yeah,
Middle Eastern, I think.
some falafel, some hummus. I'm guessing that's kind of what it's like, but we'll have to do a little research, figure it out. So if you find something that an article or a website or something that explains what Bahrainian food is like, send it my way so I so then I can figure out what local cuisine that I or what place I can find that's close to the local cuisine. Might just be Indian food. Who knows? I
There
love
you
my
go.
Indian food.
Fair enough. Um, all right, man. I think we've covered pretty much everything. We'll just look forward to Bahrain coming up next week, and we'll see how it goes. Any bold predictions you want to make?
Oh boy, I didn't do a good job of thinking through my bold predictions, and I've been getting torched so bad that I'm starting to wonder if I should be if I should be doing these. Um, I let so uh, well, let's see. Last week I said that Yuki was going to be in the top 7. That was a bust. I want
I
to
said he
I
was going
want
to
to
be top 10, and it didn't come to fruition either.
I want to bet on Yuki, but I let's see. Hmm, bold prediction. I think okay, let's how about this? Gasly's going to score points. I've had a bold prediction about Gasly before and it didn't pan out. That was with him damaging the car. So let's say Gasly's going to score points. That's the probably the boldest that I'll go. What do you got?
I'm going to double down on Sonoda, say he'll get in top 10. So we go double or nothing on him. And I'm going to predict that Hadjar will be in the top 10 again.
That's starting to look like that's not that bold of a statement. He's doing well, and so
Well, if I get it
um,
wrong, we'll circle back.
yeah, I hope you're right because I've been liking Hadjar. I think that he has proven himself to be a good pickup. So yeah, I'm still going to be rooting for Ferrari. I want to see them doing better than what they're doing. But I don't know what I could say about Ferrari that would be a bold prediction. At this point, saying that you know, Lewis will outscore Charles would be a bold prediction. So maybe I'll go there. Lewis finishes ahead of Charles. I think they'll both still score points, but that's my bold prediction. Lewis above Leclerc.
I think that's pretty stinking bold. All right, I'll go a pretty bold one then too. I'll do Russell finishes first. How's that?
Ooh, Russell for the win.
Yeah, I'll do Russell
Okay,
for the win.
I like that.
He's
I
been
like that.
sort of like silently just racking up strong finishes and good points, and I think this will be the weekend he turns it around.
I think that's bold and achievable, and I like that. I wouldn't mind seeing that. anything like that that's going to cause any doubt where Lewis will be like, "Dang it, why did I do this? Or why did I get?" I'm liking that. That not because I want any mental pain for Lewis. I just think it creates a good storyline for him to wonder if you jump ship too soon.
Fair enough, man. Well, all right. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.
All right, James. Ciao.
Ciao.